call.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Roche?
Here.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
And Mr. Randolph is with us on the phone.
Yes, here.
And the town manager is present. And let the record show that absent today are Mr. Kent and Mr. Doherty and Mr. Smith, with notice.
Minutes of the regular meeting. Any comments from the last meeting we had? That would be the meeting of Thursday, September 18th, 2014.
I'd like to make something.
Go ahead.
Can I make a motion to approve the draft minutes that were presented to us at the last meeting?
I'll second that.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Roche?
Here.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Chairman Lyons?
Yes. Okay. Meeting dates. Rita would appreciate that, as I would, if you're going to be unable to attend, to alert Rita sooner rather than later. Let me ask about the November 20th meeting. Most of the individuals here are going to be able to attend.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. And given December comes quickly, what about the 18th of December?
Yes.
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 Excellent, thank you. Now let me move to the items by the staff. And so I'll hand it over.
Oh, okay, thank you. We have for discussion and ideally some direction. The first three items under agenda item 6A. And the first one is as it relates to paver bricks and the calculation of hardscape. If you have your code book with me, I would encourage you to turn to that section, 70-148-1, or Friends 1. It's found on page CD 70:70. And I'll read to you what it says in that section, beginning with the introduction. Because of this diversity, no particular style or technique is encouraged or discouraged overall. Landscape issues should be addressed on a district level basis. Some underlying principles do apply to the town as a whole. 1. Required. Minimum landscape open space of 40% of the lot, parens, pool decks, and driveway areas shall not count towards the 40% open space, end of parens. The question that we have dealt with for some time is whether or not paver bricks should be counted in the hardscape calculations. Presently, they are not. Typically, they're laid in sand and somewhat in a pervious concept, but that is a percentage, or not entirely the case. And so we are seeing more and more applications come forward with a great deal of paver bricks in the front yard area. That may be acceptable, it may be aesthetically pleasing, I don't know, but it is something that has been brought forward for discussion at this level. I hope I made myself clear.
Now, paver bricks are like walkways of bricks that are set in sand.
That's right. Driveways as well. A lot of driveways have paver bricks, walkways in the front,
Pool decks?
pool decks.
So pool
but
decks,
primarily,
So if someone were going to try to eliminate the amount of open space, they could use paver bricks as opposed to, or use paver bricks and consider it to be open space were it not to be
That is
Or
correct.
not to be regulated.
That is correct. Right now, we consider it to be open space.
Right.
Mr. Thrasher, if it's set in some kind of cement, is that considered?
Well, that would not be considered open space. I mean, that's definitely impervious.
Okay.
And
And that's an operative term. If, for example, the golf course just put down some brick pavers,
yes,
but it's set in sand, so when it rains, the water runs off that one little brick, it goes below the surface to wherever the drainage goes.
good one.
I don't mind that. But that by definition isn't considered part of, it's considered open
It
space.
is considered open space.
Let me ask you this question. Would the discussion revolve around two issues? One is the aesthetics, the general appearance of a property, but also the issue of runoff and where water goes? I mean,
Yes.
those are the two issues.
Yes.
Do you have any perception of the background as to the open space concept, or was it more the aesthetics of how things looked, or was it more about the runoff and how water is within a lot?
I wasn't present in those discussions. This is a section of the code that's existed for some time. I guess the last update was 2005, and I'm not sure, Rita?
I don't-
Just let me say that for your convenience, Marty Minor is here, and if you want to ask him any questions as it relates to this, please, I encourage you to do so.
Well, I certainly like his input. Maybe what we, in hindsight, maybe I should have suggested he give us some input and perspective on it, and then we could discuss it further.
Good morning. For the record, Marty Minor, Urban Design Kildare Studios. With open space requirements, part of this, and you are correct, it is an appearance and also runoff. And also, you're looking at something, a minimum of the 40% that's not paved over. This forces you to bring some green into the area. How much? That it's your determination, and what does that consist of. Other communities, driveways usually are not included for open space, but I've seen some places where they've done anything like pool decks or open areas has counted for open space. I've seen other places that also say no more than 50% of the open space can be hardscape, and you sort of draw that line in between there. So those are some suggestions that have been done in other places.
Well, I'll make a comment, show my ignorance. I frankly thought that the pavers were considered part of the hardscape. In fact, it's excluded, and I'm surprised it is excluded, because it looks like hardscape to me and not open space, so I'm inclined to,
I think this started, I'm going to say prior to my tenure, and it was not as prevalent and not as material as far as coverage as it has become lately. So,
now obviously if you was to take a piece of property today and consider the brick paver hardscape, not open space, I'm wondering if the 40% of the lot area is the right percentage, but it's kind of a two-dimensional question. I mean, my instinct is to define hardscape, the brick pavers is what they are. I mean, they're hardscape. There's no way around it in my mind. I mean, do you?
Can I just ask Marty?
Yeah, sure.
Well, Marty, follow up, can you just reiterate, not destroy the place, can you just reiterate, basically you know of places that have an open space regulation and they have regulations that say a percentage of that open space can't be exceeded for pavers?
Well, they call it generally hardscape.
Okay, so
So be decks.
basically,
or some sort
in our case, 40% max, or rather minimum,
right.
of open space, and then of that 40%, there's a percentage which can't be exceeded of
Correct.
hardscape.
And that would ensure that some becomes actually green space.
Okay.
The runoff question is a good one, and pervious versus impervious, they, some places address it that separately.
Okay.
Yeah,
But on the runoff, I mean, to me, as you say, it could be separate. If there's an issue with runoff on that property, the homeowner is, Curtis probably dealt with, I know my brother did, you provide for that.
You provide.
The ground lease across the street from me provided for that. And so I'm not sure we need to capture that in this
Right.
particular provision. I don't know, what do you think?
No, I agree. No, the drainage is covered in many different areas.
never have I seen a drainage plan that includes in the calculation the impervious concept of paver brick. So it's apart and separate, and it is controlled and required and reviewed separately through the certified drainage plan. Yes, Rita?
Are we sure, when they calculate that for the runoff, that they have a drawing that actually shows the amount of pavers? I'm wondering if some of them just have a survey with the lot sizes and the elevations in the various places, and it does not show what the finished product is gonna be.
That's not been my experience when I have reviewed these. I identified swells and exfiltration systems outside of paver bricks and driveways and things of this nature. In fact, that's one of the reasons why we ask that if there is a material change in the site plan or landscaping and things of this nature, that it's brought back. That's one of the reasons, brought back to the ARPB. That is one of the reasons, because that configuration can change. And that is the idea behind a final inspection, to include identification and verification of the drainage plan. It was built as proposed. I don't, and then if I observe something like that it's changed and I don't see a swell, usually at that point of construction, the contractor is very willing to immediately address that issue. He wants his CO.
Well, if we were to include paver bricks, would that throw anyone who is living here presently into violation of?
No, those,
Or would
basically
they
the
be
concept of
grandfathered?
grandfathering, we've approved it, and they met, we'd say they met the code
Regulation
requirements
at
at that
that
time.
time.
It's just what may change for the future, and what we control and the calculations and things that we see. We do ask for a calculation of open spaces.
Right.
So, for example, to simplify it, if you were to say that some portion, some percentage of paver bricks, whether that be in driveways or the pool decks or whatever, but some percentage of the paver bricks be included in the calculation of hardscape, it would probably rectify any concerns that staff has. I don't know what percentage that might be, 25 or 50%, but Rita and I have many times discussed that there should be some percentage applied to paver bricks. It's just growing by leaps and bounds in our opinion. Rita, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, when y'all asked the question about what originally was considered when they put that in the code, that back in the early 90s was when that was established, and basically it was aesthetics that drove that decision. However, paver bricks were just kind of coming into their notoriety then. They weren't extensively used at that time, and this particular section of the code, to my knowledge, or as best I can remember, has never been looked at from the time it was put in there. So as paver bricks have become more popular, the section that controls them has not had anything done to it or reviewed.
Yeah, I said it had been reviewed in '05, but we don't, at this point in time, I don't know what part of that, this whole section was changed, so it is very possible, and I agree with Rita, that nothing has changed since the original code
Well,
creation.
getting this right is very important because
Yeah.
it can really impact somebody building a new house or redoing a new house.
You could have the whole front yard.
As a parking spot,
Yeah.
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 I know this is a difficult question to answer, but you took a typical lot in the core district with a typical driveway, and neither of which is typical.
Right.
How much space does that occupy of the lot? Is it 2% or 30%? I have no idea, because if it's 30%, we say now it's thrown in, that really dramatically changes where we have been to. Do you have any sense of?
No, I have not done that analysis.
Yeah, I really
Do
haven't.
you follow my
either.
thought process?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Marty, can you tell us any history about other communities? Do they consider a percentage of paver bricks to be included in the hardscape calculation? Do you have any
Whether they've
information on that?
included it in the open space calculation, some
Okay,
hardscape,
vice versa.
vice versa. Chairman Lyons, I can't give you a good answer to that. My guess would be close to, for a typical driveway, 10 to 15%.
So it's sizable.
It's sizable. The concern is, it was raised that you don't want a very large, the whole front yard become a driveway, a parking area for everything. So that's why there is a need for some sort of limits. But there is a recognition, as Ms. Taylor said, that paver bricks are popular. They look good. It can be incorporated as part of a garden. There usually is some allowances for that. For the driveways, I've seen it, just not really counted towards open space at all as a way of trying to control that. It becomes part of, you throw in the stones and you get some pervious, there's some play in it, but usually everything but the driveway is not counted. The
counted.
driveway is not counted for open space, but everything other than building
Is counted.
is counted. Whether it be a little place where you sit, a little porch around a fire pit, that would count as open space. Any kind of landscaping, of course, your buffers around the sides, but a driveway typically does not.
That's good.
Have you ever seen a code which bifurcates backyard from the front yard? In other words, visually from the street, people will see the driveway. They don't, in most properties, you don't see the back.
Right.
And somehow coming up with a formula that controls what you see in the front of the house, so it's not all hardscape. Or is that just not a practical way to deal with it?
It gets a little difficult to, then you start determining, especially on something with a varied front. Architects and planners get very creative.
Yes.
So normally those things are governed by the limiting of things specifically to the front yard, whether this type of use, this type of trees, or I've seen where no accessory, no accessory structures or things like that, but not in an open space kind of parameter.
I think it makes some sense that we consider the paver bricks in the driveway as hardscape. And, then that gives them the whole flexibility, whatever else they wanna do in their house. You know, you've seen, we have a lot of Chattahoochee driveway entrances, and I know that's a bit messy, but it's just changing on us. And I think it's incumbent upon you to consider it.
But, I'm trying to think through the practical, Mr. Thrasher.
Okay?
I had pebbles, I prefer pebbles personally.
Yes.
I actually, personally, I wouldn't put brick in front of my house, but that's a personal opinion. But the reality is, some people like brick over pebbles. And I'm just wondering why someone who has a preference for brick over pebbles, somehow we distinguish between the two. What are pebbles? Is that open space?
Yeah, I would say it is. Yes.
They are a common thing.
But you follow my point?
But brick, yeah, but brick does not necessarily mean brick, red brick. I mean, our driveway is paving stone, or is paving bricks,
Right.
but they're
Oh,
white.
I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry, I'm using the brick as a,
Yeah.
I mean to use the term,
Pavers.
paver brick.
Yeah.
Or pavers.
Paver,
When you say,
generally paver.
it's not just brick, it's pavers.
Yeah,
Mhm.
pavers.
Okay.
So, you know, I sort of like Marty's idea that on a driveway, it would not be considered, I mean, that it would be considered as hardscape.
Yes.
And however, in a garden in the back, if someone has a walkway in a garden in the back, that could be considered to be open space.
Yeah, that's right.
But understand that if we make this change, someone who chooses to put in pavers over pebbles is gonna be meaningfully penalized, let's say, by 15%.
Yeah, disadvantage.
In terms of what else they can do on their property, because really, in effect, this would say, if you wanna do pavers, you're gonna pay for it, in terms of open space.
Or if you want to concrete or asphalt, you're going to, it's considered hardscape.
Okay, and maybe that's just the pure reality of it, but I just wanna be sure we all understand what we're deciding. I'm beginning to be inclined that, there's no perfect balance, but maybe it's some percentage.
Let me see if I understand you correctly. You want to make a percentage of a paver brick driveway considered as hardscape.
Correct.
I mean, since I don't know mathematically how it's all played out, I mean, that may be a more reasonable.
Well, it is a more, I mean, because you're not getting 100% penalty, you get some penalty, if you will.
Any comment, Rita?
I gotta think about it.
You know, there's gonna be some further discussion, particularly on entry features,
Mhm.
and I'm not sure we're gonna decide today. I have some thoughts about that. I'm wondering if, and I hate to kick the can down the road, but I think this issue on the entry features, we really need to get right, because that's gonna be impactful to anybody building a house. And so I don't wanna jump on a decision, nor do I want it to be decided in 2015, but I think the next couple of meetings, we should get it done, and maybe what we need to do, and I need guidance from Mr. Randolph, from Mr. Thrasher, have a workshop, if that's the right term, where we can address 2 or 3 of these issues, maybe even invite an architect or 2, and just have some discussion. I'd like to have a better feeling what Palm Beach does, for example, or Ocean Ridge, etc. Just, I'd like to have some perspective rather than just doing it in a vacuum. I don't know, what does everybody else think?
Can I ask, Bill, the applications that you received, you see an increase in the amount of pavers that are planned and put in. Are there some examples of those? I mean, just literally to our own heads, you know, in terms of not the name, the place, but in generic terms, you know, we've had 2 applications, 3 applications, and this was the scenario. There was that much open space, of which, you know, this was pavers, just to get a feel for the actual size of, you know, you're saying it's increasing and we don't want people with, you know, endless drives of just pavers, but the sort of challenges you're faced with at the moment, just, do you have any sort of, you know, if
At this very moment?
No, no, not this
recite,
Oh,
no,
actually,
no.
I can for
Yeah.
you. I can identify at least 6 or 7 homes in the last 3 years. In fact, the home Randy knows about, where, you know, they took pebbles and put in pavers.
Right.
Well, I shouldn't say that it's true in any case. The house that was reconstructed or built, definitely almost all of them I'm seeing is with pavers.
Yeah.
I guess another way of answering your question.
And on a percentage basis, so, you know, there's, let's say, 1,000 square feet, I know it's something, you know, sort of what percentage, you know, building X percentage, and then what did it end up as? Did it, you know, just the idea of the challenge, I mean, the building that you're
Well,
talking
Marty thinks it's 15%.
Right,
Yeah, it's around 10 to 15.
okay.
But this article right here
says
says
it
that
doesn't
pool
count,
decks and driveway areas shall not count
Yeah.
towards
Open
the
space.
40%. So it really doesn't make any difference whether your driveway is made out of asphalt or whether it's made out of pavers. It's not counted as open space.
I mean, it's saying should paver brick, the discussion is should we?
No,
No.
he's citing the code.
The code says.
I'm looking at the code. It says minimum landscaped open space of 40% of the lot area.
Yeah,
And then parenthetically, pool decks and driveway shall not count toward the 40% open space. So regardless of what your driveway is made of, that's not counted towards open space anyway.
You still got to have the 40%.
I see what you're
If
saying.
it becomes
Sorry, I misunderstood.
self-regulating,
Yeah,
you,
I mean-
basically, if you meet the 40%, and you've obviously got a building on the property, there's not a great deal of space. You've got to have 40%. You know, it's a bit like you can't have.
Yeah, I
There's that
guess the
40%.
discussion becomes more simplified if you simply say you want me to enforce the code as written.
If you say what?
You want me to enforce the code as written.
Well, that's a totally different question.
Well, I think Mr. Roche's point is very good. That's what the code says.
So this doesn't need to be on the agenda
Oh, yeah, it does.
then?
Because throughout 15 years, this has not,
Been enforced?
has it been?
No. Because everybody says, well, regardless, pavers, they were just looking at it usually from the runoff aspect. And they say because pavers are set in sand,
Well,
It will absorb the runoff,
yeah,
whereas an asphalt driveway will let it run,
Mhm.
or a cement driveway or whatever. Yeah, I see that distinction. In that case, I think that paver bricks should be included as, you know, not part of the hardscape. I mean, as part of the hardscape, with the possibility perhaps of getting you know, if you have a walkway and a garden or something in the back of your house, that you can get an exception for that.
Well, I think we
No.
should just say,
Or do you think that
driveway.
complicates it?
I
just
think
say
so.
the driveway, a paved
Mhm.
driveway is part of the hardscape.
Yeah, or just say paver driveway is part of the hardscape, yeah.
Yeah, but now the question is, when we get back to the square footage, because again, we're making a pretty dramatic change from what's been, as a practical matter, been happening. Because it hasn't, let me be sure I have this right. As a practical matter, the town has not defined pavers as part of hardscape.
that's right.
No, we haven't defined it
Or it
in
hasn't
written form.
applied as, okay. So we're talking about a big change from what we've been doing in the past.
Yeah,
Mhm.
pavers have
Okay, I
been
just wanted to-
open territory so far.
Open space, right?
And now we're saying that they potentially could be limited. But then all practicality tells me that anyone's driveway is gonna be a driveway. It's not gonna be a parking lot.
No, it's gonna be a driveway, but if you put in pebbles,
Yeah.
that's open space. You put in a paver,
It's not open
Mhm.
space.
and so you're, in a way, you know, again, I don't know what the right percentage calculation is, but I think if 15% of your property is typically dedicated to a driveway, then we're taking 15% of other hardscape away from the prospective building.
Mr. Chairman, this is Skip Randolph. Can I interrupt for a moment?
Yeah, please.
I don't think this is a unique issue, and I think it's one, as you suggested earlier, has been dealt with by other municipalities.
Right?
And I would suggest before you finalize this issue that we look at what Palm Beach and Jupiter Island and Ocean Ridge and others do in this regard, and just bring them back and then let you wrestle with it after you see how others have handled it.
Yes, excellent idea, and I think unless anybody has any further comment, I think that's what, somebody might wanna make a proposal?
What, to include Marty Minor to do that investigation?
Yes.
Thank you.
No, my pleasure.
Yeah, I'll propose that we table this conversation until we get more input from appropriate, from appropriate communities that are like Gulfstream.
Okay, will do.
I'll second that.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Roche?
Yes?
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Chairman Lyons?
Yes.
All right, moving on to another section of our code, if you could turn to section 70-101D5. It's talking about windows, the subject is windows and what is prohibited. And we are in the area-wide section of our code. And prohibited, it says undivided windows over 3 feet in width or larger than 16 square feet visible from the street. And the question or discussion that we have run into is whether or not this section of the code should also apply visible by waterway. We have a lot of windows facing coves and waterways and things of this nature visible to the neighbors. So, I don't know if you have any thoughts in that area, but we're getting more and more applications on waterways that feel as though
I think that the architecture of a building should be very cohesive, so if you're forcing windows on the street to have dividers in them or certain spacing, it should apply to the entire building, so that there's a consistent architectural look to the building.
I would agree with that comment.
so. Then your recommendation would be similar to that.
Yeah, so somebody wanna make a motion, unless there's any, Marty, do you have any comment?
No, that sounds good.
The public has no comment, so somebody wanna make a motion?
I will propose that windows without, windows that would be larger than 16 square feet or over 3 feet in width must have a divider, or must, how are we gonna do this? Must be consistent with the windows in all sides of the building.
That's what we have now, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, if you
So
could,
it'd
just
be no change.
no, what I would
No.
do,
Well,
No.
except that this,
Take out the language from street, and I
From-
believe that
from
solves
street.
it.
Okay.
If
Yeah.
you want to put from street and waterway, whichever way you want to put it, I just take from street, I think you're right, just strike that, which is clearer.
Yeah, just remove from street.
Yeah, would you agree with that, Rick?
Yeah, if you remove from street,
Yeah.
then it's all four
It's
sides.
all windows.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
If you add
Okay.
waterways, just the two, so.
So would you like to try that again and
Okay,
state
so
the
we're gonna
reading
make a
of the-
motion saying that undivided windows over 3 feet in width or larger than 16 square feet,
Period,
visible,
no, just
No.
period.
Period.
No,
or period, yeah, are prohibited, yeah, or in the prohibited section.
Mhm.
I think that does it.
I
A
second.
second?
Is that a second?
I
Mrs.
second.
Jones? You're an aye, I take it?
Yes, I'm an aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Chairman Lyons?
Yes,
All right, moving to number 3, section of our code 70-105, parens 3. It's talking about garages and accessory buildings, and specifically at this section, garages. Prohibited 3-stall or larger garages on any lot not adequately screened or buffered from the roadway. That language seems to be challenged all the time, and the architects typically include landscaping in front of these 3-stall garages that are visible from the road, and their argument is that in essence they have screened it and therefore comply with the code. Staff kind of believes that that 3-car stalls or larger should be, I'm not sure of the term, but side-loaded or something of that nature on the side of the home, so not visible from the front. What happens in some size homes, the garage, 3-car stall garage, becomes more of a dominant feature than what might be aesthetically pleasing. So if they want 3-car garage, they have to have an adequate space to have a side load system. Or if they can't, then the maximum number of garage doors would be 2. We have several instances that we have ran into recently. One I can cite, but I would prefer not to, that that indeed was the argument, and to this day it is very visible from the roadway. So this section of the code causes difficulty in addressing this issue with architects. It's definitely difficult for staff, and would welcome your input on this challenge. Yes, Rita?
Just to muddy the water, when I first came here, the code did require that if it was more than a double garage, it had to be side loaded. That was originally the way it was. And then when this code was drafted, the thought was that the lots in a lot of cases are too small to design something for garages and have room to maneuver for side loading. So that's why they put that section in there that says unless screened. But then you run into, with the screening, to get something that would really screen, that eliminates a lot of your access to getting in and out of the garage. But that was the reason it went in there, is because they felt the lots were not of sufficient size, especially in the core area, to properly access a side load garage.
let me ask, as a practical matter, and we need to address this, but again, put things in perspective. There are not many lots that would accommodate a full 3 bays. There's only, I can't imagine, there's not too many that we see many of these issues? I just wanna,
More all the time.
More all the time. There is.
More vehicles on the road.
Yeah,
well, okay, so, thank you. Let
maybe
me,
it could be restricted to districts, I don't know. Obviously, it's not a problem on the beach.
Right.
It's definitely obscured. Some lots in Ocean West, but when you're dealing with the core, Place au Soleil, north-south, it's a problem.
just a perspective, in the village, incorporated village, like the town here of Southampton, you cannot put your garage facing front of the house, period. And the lots in their core are smaller than the lots here in many cases. So you gotta figure out how to do it. I do think that a three-stalled garage that's visible from the street is unsightly. It's a shame that, I mean, I'm thinking of a home, near me that, it's only a two-stall, and it's on a corner lot. I know the house well, and they've landscaped it, you can't see it at all.
Two-stall garage?
Yeah, it's actually, well, but that house could have accommodated.
Three.
This is across from Hewlett Camp. And it's, it's a big piece of property, built by Wheatsmith. But the way it was done, it really does accomplish what was intended in this language. And I don't know what, in that case, it would have been, in my mind, fine, as they did. But if you think it's a real problem that people just violating the intent of this.
Well, that's, you have triggered some thought in my mind, and that is that in the core area, we are able to have very high hedges, which accomplishes the real task of screening from view. Place au Soleil, for example, the concept is open front yards, and we proved some language as to how to mathematically determine what amount should be open. And the house that has brought this finally to my suggestion that we look at it is in Place au Soleil. It will never be obscured from view. Three-car garage, it will never happen.
Malcolm, you have a view, I mean, you spend more time over there and.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about the size of the lots issue. I mean, your point, Paul, to have, the lots aren't that big in Place au Soleil. And
No.
to have such a space dominated by that much garage is, to me, it's just not, it's not attractive. It's not. It's also a cop-out for the architect. Sorry if there's any architects, but it's a bit like, okay, that bit's taken care of. It's, and what can we do with the rest of the house? It's overpowering. I'm talking about Place au Soleil now. That as a percentage, that just facade, 3 bays, it's overpowering for the whole property.
Would
Good.
people be allowed to have a double-up car garage where it accommodates there's a 2-car garage that accommodates 4 cars?
Yes.
It just needs a bit of maneuver.
That's happened, but sometimes that becomes obvious in the design of the home. You can see that proportionately
It pops out.
it pops out. But the answer to your question is yes, we've seen people try to do that, and maybe they have accomplished it in our town, I don't know, but it seems as though it finally got to a discussion of symmetry and proportion, and it was, I don't think it was actually fulfilled. Does that ring a bell, Rita?
No.
Okay, I do remember it.
I frankly, Simona, can you comment, what do you see in the way of practice and other?
It is, you don't get, I agree from a personal standpoint that a three-stall garage is way overpowering for front elevation. Using landscaping to screen, it's an iffy prospect. I think the side-loaded is a better solution. They don't necessarily have to side-load all three. You could have one on the side, two in the front, to create an area that can work. There's options to do that, rather than allowing three right there at your front door.
Last question,
Yeah.
we talked about stalls, and people create a smaller stall for golf carts.
Yeah, that's
So
considered.
are we gonna make any distinction, just three
No.
stalls, okay?
But Marty, while you're there,
Yeah.
are you concerned about districts at all?
Well, the only thing is interpretation, if it's facing the street, you know, the beach is not a concern because you have a lot of vegetation, or it's pulled far back, or there's another building in front of it. But the core district is probably the most concerned, Paso Soleil, where you have a small lot and homes are closer to the street, and it has much more of an impact on the street, and so that needs to be looked at. And relying on landscaping to handle that, sometimes it handles fine. By the time you have disease, as we've all seen,
Right.
freezes, that kind of stuff, or just a change, the guy gets it approved and then later trims it up really nice.
So before you leave, I think there's a question, and in some ways probably a
Yeah.
recommendation. I think we need to consider regulations by district.
Well, I'm just thinking, the reason why I mentioned that is because on A1A, you have an additional section of the code involving the North Ocean Corridor, and landscaping in that area
Setback, right?
is a requirement, in addition to what they landscape on their own property. So we have this corridor that provides a lot of protection as far as visibility from the roadway. Do you know what I mean? So I think all districts except
By the beach.
West and Beach this language would be applicable and helpful to.
Yeah, I'm inclined to, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess then we should have a motion in that regard.
What did you say, they, all districts except the beach?
In the west.
In the west.
Yeah, the beachfront and Ocean West. Because in those areas, we definitely have, additional, landscaping requirements along A1A.
So should I make a motion?
Please.
Which you can manage.
I make a motion that 3-stall or larger garages be prohibited from facing the street, apart from except on the beachfront and the Ocean West district.
I'll second that.
You second?
Mm-hmm.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Roche?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Chairman Lyons?
Yes.
And now for the agenda item 6B. This is discussion related to roof color, and I've asked Mr. Minor to help us with that, or actually you did. You asked Mr. Minor to help us with that language, and he's here to discuss that with you.
Our favorite topic, roof tiles. And the colors, therefore. Within your packet, there is language. Since then, Mr. Thresher and I have discussed it more. Instead of adding or tiles of similar color, we thought that was a little broad. So we added or tiles of similar slate-like color. Sort of brings it into the slate family rather than similar colors As someone who's very talented can make an argument that purple or something off the chart. You tie it to more of a slate-like color, it narrows the family of colors.
I just want to be sure, this is the document?
That was that document, and since that time,
Yes, what are you adding?
we're adding, on the underlined sections of your packet,
Yeah.
it says similar color, in between similar and color, slate-like.
And
Oh,
that-
okay, okay, thank
But
you.
coupled with that language may be permitted at the discretion of ARPB and the town commission. So
Right.
as Mrs. Jones said, you may very possibly get a purple
Yeah.
slate-like color tile, which in our town
No.
would not be allowed.
That's a good change.
Pardon?
Any comment, discussion?
Seems very straightforward.
So would the motion just be as to
To
the
accept.
language added?
Yes.
I'll make a motion that the amendments as proposed in the documents in our pack for section 70-238 roofs is adopted as presented.
I'll second that.
Wait,
No,
adopted as presented.
As in top
With one modification.
Yeah, similar
or top.
slate-like color.
Yes.
Okay, so
That's not in the document presented to you.
got it. Okay.
The
So
additions too.
in that case, can I start again, as they say? Okay, I'd like to make, I rescind the previous motion, and I'd like to make the motion that for section 70-238 reference roofs, the text as presented is adopted with the addition of slate-like colour. Uncoated tile, slate-like colour tile, or tiles of similar colours be adopted.
Well, are we deleting or
We're
slate?
deleting, I thought we, sorry guys,
Yeah,
We're deleting or slate,
my notes,
isn't it?
just all.
Just
Or is that
we're
just-
taking, are we taking that out? Your-
Now, Malcolm, I must,
Yeah, sorry, Bill.
must warn you that if you make a third mistake, you're out.
Sorry guys, I hope this is on the record. If I have
Just for the opportunity.
if I have to stand at the back of the room. Okay, we're taking out,
Oh, no, I guess that is
Just
in.
all.
yeah,
It looks like the or
That's-
slate
Remove all.
is
Struck
sliced
out.
through,
yeah, you see
but
on
that's
mine,
not.
it's,
Yeah.
it should be uncoated tile.
Or
Or
slate-like
like colour.
tile, or slate-like tile, or tiles of similar colors.
Tiles
Similar
are
slate-like color.
No,
slate.
No
like.
all slate-like,
Correct.
yes.
The first or is eliminated, we
Okay.
tacked it onto
Or
the
is
end.
eliminated.
so all we're doing is taking out,
Uncoated tile,
Yeah.
slate-like tile, or tiles
So
of
sim-
similar colors.
that's the verbiage we're going with.
Correct.
Similar slate-like color.
Similar slate-like, the
Color.
slate-like color is the operative. Not just similar color, it's gotta be similar.
the two of us-
slate-
yeah.
Slate-like
Do we have different
tile.
documents?
Yeah, the
No.
two of us are looking at the same
We
document.
wrote something
All
on
right,
there.
this is,
Slate,
We wrote the slate-like here. So,
yeah, it's
We
just
took out the,
changing it
Or.
I've
around.
got that bit, yeah, I've definitely
so
done.
then it reads slate-like tile or tiles of
Similar.
similar slate-like colours.
oh,
Oh.
we're adding.
Sorry. I'm so pleased, Curtis, you were coming onto my train at that
Oh,
point.
yeah. We're both fired.
Okay, hang on. The uncoated tile, slate-like tiles, or tiles of
Similar slate.
sorry guys,
Okay.
there's two slate-likes.
Yes,
Yeah, I see your challenge.
Yeah, that's the challenge. I mean, I was trying to be efficient, so we're having two slate-likes in our proposal.
Yeah, maybe we should take
Yeah.
one
The first
slate-like out.
slate-like out.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
I
just
think you're
seems-
right,
The
Malcolm.
English teacher is gonna
Sorry
throw
guys,
us right out of
just-
class.
it's a redundancy.
Yes.
No, the first one I thought was crossed out, but in any case.
No,
it's-
well, right, this document you have crosses out or, but
I
you
think we
would
should
cross
take that.
out or slate-like,
That's
that
it.
position. And then or tiles of slate-like similar
I
colors.
think
Slate-like colors.
Does that
uncoated
permit,
tile or
real
tiles of
slate?
similar slate-like
Yeah.
colours.
Does that
Yes.
allow real
Thank you,
slate?
It says gray slate
Yes.
tile.
Okay.
Okay, I'll take one of my.
White through and through.
Can I take one of my stripes back?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay. I rescind all the previous proposals. Okay, and now I'd like to make a recommendation that we adopt section 70-238 roofs. That the verbiage should read, and I take a section out here: flat, grey through and through, uncoated tile or tiles of similar slate-like colours.
Yes.
good.
I'll second that.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Roche?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Chairman Lyons?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy, you no longer have to wear that dunce cap.
Thank you. Can I just say that isn't it ironic that even tiles cause so much problem, even in the verbiage, not just curse.
We've labored over this one point of discussion so many.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, good. I'm glad that's behind us.
All right, we will, simply, if you want to turn to section 7218D and 7238D, we're suggesting that the word metal under prohibited be added to those sections of the code to create consistency throughout the code, where it appears otherwise, or other places. Maybe I should go there, 7218.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Just simply say metal roofs. We have mansard roof, add the language
Metal
metal
roofs.
roofs in section 7218D.
Mr. Thrasher, previously, before this change, the roofs under 7238A, it says required,
Yes,
white, flat, untextured, et cetera, et cetera. So you, by adding the prohibition to metal at the end of this section, is just to ensure that people understand.
consistency, that's correct.
But it's not a change, it's just a clarification.
That's right.
That's right.
They're already.
I just
They
want to
are
be sure that
already,
we're clear on
but-
this.
So that it trails throughout the whole code that way, the
Okay.
same message.
Wasn't there a previous, at a previous meeting, a conversation with regard to metal roofs that generated electricity?
Not at this level. I think we,
I never.
well, we had an application,
You were here, there
but
was.
that was at a commission level, I thought.
There was someone
Challenge
who
tonight.
was anticipating putting a metal roof on a house.
It was an appeal.
Appeal of my-
Yeah,
We turned
exactly.
it down on a staff basis,
Oh, I didn't know.
and the appeal goes to straight to the commission.
And it was discussed as to whether or not, if a metal roof could be, energy economical, would it then be, it would then be federal law that it could be put on. And I don't remember the exact discussion that went on at that, but Bill, you were here also at that meeting.
That was at a commission
Yeah, it
meeting, town
was-
commission meeting.
Or was that
It
a
was
town
never
commission
brought
meeting
here.
rather than maybe, it was before I was
Yes,
on the
and that was
architectural review board.
a challenge to the administrator's decision,
Right,
which goes to the Board of Adjustment, the town commission, and goes directly there. And in that discussion, the administrator's decision was upheld.
okay. So therefore, adding metal would not be inconsistent with that.
In my opinion, no.
no further discussion. Should we have a motion, please?
Okay, in the prohibited section of 70-238 roofs, I propose that we add the construction material metal to the prohibited roof types.
And you
Roof
want to
styles.
include the other section as well?
7218.
218D,
Oh, and 7218D.
18.
right.
I'll second that.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Roach?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Chairman Lyons?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman and Bill, I think this is an appropriate time for me to tell you that I have to sign off.
All right, do you want us to give you time to get in your car and call you back, or just say goodbye, goodbye?
Well, I've read Marty's materials in regard to this, and I don't, except for perhaps one of the subjects, I don't think there's too much that's controversial in regard to NAVD and that sort of thing.
Understood.
So it's going to take me probably at least a half an hour to get within range on my cell phone. And so you're probably by 10 o'clock, they can be close to finish.
That is correct. We thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
That's good.
Pick that up, put it down just to be sure.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I didn't want to get up.
Okay, moving right along, we are into the NGVD, NAVD discussion and language, the code language changes. Mr. Minor, again, is the presenter.
Good morning again. This is a cleanup item. I guess the system in determining elevations of the ground level has changed from the National Geodetic Vertical Datum to the North American Vertical Datum. Surveyor terms, they've updated it. As they found out with the earlier version, the zero as the water level is different in every place. And so that's taken into effect. South Florida Water Management District, all the other agencies are switching over to this newer system, and we're changing the code to reflect that. And it shows up in your packet, section 66-258, 70-77, 70-78. Those are the two that refer to the NGVD, and we're switching it to NAVD.
And that's just simple mathematics.
Simple mathematics. It doesn't change the standard. It's just the measurement has changed.
So do we need a motion on that, unless there are questions?
Only you want to go through the whole thing. I guess let's start with that, since there's going to be discussions.
The whole thing being the South Florida Water Management?
Well, then you have the South Florida, then you have the entry height features. Let's do
Oh,
that
the
separately.
entry height will be separate.
Yeah. But the design criteria is another cleanup item. Some engineers in town pointed out this inconsistency. It's quite frankly, it's a dated standard that somewhat conflicted with each other internally and externally to other standards we have regarding drainage. Basically, everyone's required to get a South Florida permit. They govern the drainage, and so we reference the South Florida rather than come up with a standard that may change in years to come. The South Florida standards you have to meet, so that's what we referenced.
May I ask a question on the maximum first floor elevation?
Yes.
The changes you're proposing, I understand the conversion to this new system of calibration. Is this effectively the same result?
Yes. Yes, the floor elevation will be the same physical point,
Okay.
it's just the measurement's different.
Any questions on those two?
Actually, we're affecting how many sections of the code?
Four.
Four?
It's four sections.
Right.
I assume a motion to,
Right.
to
Okay,
adopt the
well-
language presented.
I will propose a motion that we change the sections in the building code that pertain to the national geodesic vertical datum to reflect the new North American vertical datum and the corresponding feet that would require in all sections. And that the design criteria in section 4294 state consistent with the South Florida Water Management District standards as opposed to, and delete to be contained from the 1-inch rainfall and the equivalent of a 24-hour/3-year return storm event.
I second.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Roach?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Chairman Lyon?
Yes.
Okay, the final. Again, code clarification on section 70-100, and Mr. Minor is here to present.
Yes. The areas of the importance of an entry we've tried to address throughout the code. We've tried to limit the size so it's not overpowering. It says that several portions of the code. Trying to regulate that has been difficult. We've removed these features, you know, the areas previously several years ago, and to rely on the rest of the home, you know, eave heights to govern that. That's proved problematic. It's been difficult to enforce. It's been difficult to understand. So I've revised this to add back the original heights that was previously, that were removed a couple of years ago, and cleaned up some of the language in subsection 4 about the entry features. You know, adding, you know, about the balcony railings, Dutch gable, other such architectural elements. We added architectural, that sort of grabs more features in helping to define an entry feature. The whole purpose, of course, is to not have an entry feature that overwhelms the architecture of the house. That is in keeping with not only the architecture of the house, but the architecture of the neighborhood and the district. And so this, the entry feature heights that were previously, you know, included, that we've proposed including back in, allows for the features to be a little bit bigger than the eave of the house, but not overwhelming. Just gives a little bit of importance, a little way for it to stand out that you know that's the entrance to the house, without creating a much larger statement. Go ahead.
What we're experiencing is that on the front of the home, the entrance area, there on the second story particularly, there is addition of certain architectural elements. The easiest to illustrate would be a balcony. So that we are including in the height measured from finished floor of an entry feature. We are including architectural features such as railings, top of the railing. It has been a growing concern that these entry features are becoming a very, very, very dominant feature from the street view and front view. So we have worked on it for a couple of years, and presently the language doesn't seem to work well for the architect nor staff, and it may continue to be a challenge because architects do not believe that a railing feature is part of the entry feature. A railing that's actually, attached to the entrance corridor or whatever it is, entry feature, and these can be really, these architectural elements can be really, or the architects can be very innovative as it relates
Yeah.
to creating elements that go on top of the, you might say, the eave of the entrance area. Maybe that doesn't help, I don't know, but
Let me make a few observations. One, I like the pavers. It's probably a more critical segment of the design manual, getting this right, both in the qualitative and quantitative language. And I did spend about 45 minutes driving around last night, I shouldn't say last night, yesterday afternoon. And it's interesting you cite the example of a balcony, and I was trying to figure out whether the balcony was part of the second floor or part of the
and that's the scheme.
and
Challenge.
And visually, to me, I was challenged by, is that part of the entry feature, or is that part of the second floor? So fast forward, as I suggested on the papers, I think that we need, again, I don't like moving things down the road, but kicking the can down the road. I'd like to have some more discussion, because I want to be sure that we, as the Architecture Review Board, get the notion of the qualitative and quantitative correct. And I have a real hard time trying to figure out whether these statistics make sense. And in fact, I looked at some houses, and it occurred to me that were reasonably new that looked fine to me, like, because they didn't have a tape measure, but looked like they might violate some of these rules. And I'm a visual person, which is probably another area I'm going to, is, if I saw some graphic design that
That's
gave
what I
me a
was gonna
sense of
suggest.
proportions,
Yeah.
but throw a number at me, I can't give you any.
Let me come back with some graphics, either photos with some measurements on it, or line drawings, just to give you some effect of what would be allowed,
Yeah.
what wouldn't be
Yeah,
allowed.
the implications of.
The implications of
Yeah.
this.
As we,
We
go
have to do that.
ahead, please.
I would like to, in those line drawings, to include an existing home.
We could make them all existing homes if we can.
Okay, well, one to be included would be on Palm Way, and it's at the, just as you turn back north. I remember the resident's name to be Davis. I think maybe they've sold that house.
At the end of the road down there.
Yes, yes. And I can get that address for you,
Okay.
but I want to include that one.
I might give you some other examples, if you don't mind.
Be happy
that,
to.
You would
Yeah,
have all the
okay,
records.
maybe we can all do that.
Yeah.
Because I really, because some I like and some I don't like, and I'd like to see them graphically. One other suggestion, and I just throw it out for discussion, to be comprehensive in a process of making certain we get it as right as we can. input from active participants, i.e. architects like Mark Marsh,
Right.
or the gentleman who's on the ad hoc. I think it would be useful and probably necessary to be sure that we've done our proper due diligence by absorbing commentary from that. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the best way to do that. I mean, do we?
Well, I know that Mark Marsh is one who has consistently
Challenged.
challenged.
Well, and you know, some good tension is
Good,
that way he'll have his day in court, if you will.
yeah,
And,
I think
you
he'd be
know,
open to it.
as
Oh,
you,
yeah.
as you said to me, Mr. Thrash, hopefully this is okay for me to quote you, but you
Oh,
think
dear.
you think he does a pretty good job in designing homes, and I would say that you know, commonly in this community, you know, many people think he does a good job. I think he should be somebody else to give us input. And there's another architect that we should consider including. And do we do it in this particular session, or do we do it in?
I think we'll have to, I thought we suggested a workshop, an
Yeah.
additional,
Yeah, can we? is that
actually, it
okay?
doesn't have to be a workshop, it could be an additional meeting. I think we're not gonna be able to really find enough time to
Right.
discuss all the factors in these two items. So an additional meeting that we can make decisions at, which we can't do at a workshop.
That's right, at a workshop,
So I
all
don't
you
know what
can
the
do is
distinction-
talk
Yeah.
and take no action.
Yep.
So I personally consider workshops worthless
Okay, that's helpful, that's the bottom line.
because if you are agreed on something, you're not in a position to make a motion there. So you have another meeting and then it gets hashed all over again.
So, with regard to following the notice rules, if we were to pick a new date, how do we follow that administrative issue?
Well, we'll,
Is there much on the next agenda meeting for the
there's,
20th of?
we definitely are gonna have one and possibly two
Okay.
applications, but one would be,
This is
I
so
do.
strange because the one that you will see in November is one that I'm presently challenged with. And it involves Mark Marsh, so I don't know legally whether or not.
It
I
could be,
don't know what to say.
I don't
They-
either.
Oh, I mean, I think that we should be able to have two buckets segregated. I mean, we're not gonna discuss that building.
I wouldn't want to compromise Mr. Marsh, so.
Well, see if he's, well, I would like to have a discussion, including architects, and certainly ones that we know their work, and so, I don't know who else that might be.
Well, let me throw
Don't you
this
think?
out. Yeah. We have, I'm sure that the one that I'm dealing with now, that will be brought forward to you November 20th. That would give, and I've just this morning encouraged Mark to make whatever comments he wants in regards to my comments, my staff report. So it might be a live opportunity to do this and not compromise Mr. Marsh in the fact that he may be lobbying for a particular position prior to his application. See what I mean? I don't know if that's even a concern, Mr. Randolph is not here, but I would think that you could have a workshop after the November 20th meeting rather than, or an
meeting,
initial meeting
special
after,
meeting.
special meeting. And let this application fly through, and I will argue against, just because I believe it is contrary to our written code presently, and we'll see what happens.
which it might not be against what you might be amending it to.
Well, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, it's an open book. We wanna be sure that
But isn't it sort of ironic that if we're going to deal with the application first, and not making any assumptions, but say it wouldn't pass as it is at the moment, but then we have a workshop, and ironically, if we adopt, Marty's
And
proposal,
now
then it would.
now I'm concerned about talking about this too much
Yeah.
at this meeting. So I think we ought to just
I think we ought to.
consider a special meeting after November 20th.
Right,
Okay.
and that's going to be a busy time. The following week is Thanksgiving week, and most people are busy, so I don't know as it would be wise to try that. The first week in December, there's nothing on the town's agenda. The town commission's meeting is the 12th, which is the second week in December. And the third week is your next
It's our
meeting.
next meeting.
Well, maybe we won't have any applications. I mean, maybe we can do this on the run. Call the chairman and ask for a special meeting.
Do we have to give notice about the special meeting?
Well, we'll have to give a little notice.
How much notice? do we
Uh,
have to
I would need to be able to post it. Well, usually it's 3 days, but I think it should be a little more than that. I should think it should be at least 5 days.
give? So, let's just say for discussion purposes.
A week.
December 1st, Monday, you probably have a good sense of what would be happening on the 18th. And if it's gonna be busy on the 18th with various applications, then maybe we could schedule something the week of the 8th. Are people around on the week of the 8th?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm always inclined to just schedule it, and keep it separate from what happens on the 18th. The 18th, we just walk in, walk out, so be it, but,
Okay.
Would it necessarily have to be on a Thursday?
no.
No,
All right. Because the following day would be the commission meeting. That's kind of tough to have two.
Yeah, so what would be good for you?
I think the Tuesday, the 9th would probably be good. Or the 8th, either one. Monday the 8th or Tuesday the 9th.
Yeah, I think, it probably needs, I can do either.
Marty, would you be able to present?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
Rita, you pick a date, because you have a lot on your plate, so pick a date that's best for you,
The 9th.
okay?
Okay.
Bill, are you okay with the 9th? That's a Tuesday.
I never argue with you. Rita.
Maybe you should.
What time should we do it?
8:30?
Okay, usual time.
And this will be a special meeting.
To address those two
Two
specific
points.
issues.
Yep.
Pavers and entry features.
Does we can either make this at the call of the chairman, or since you've got a quorum here, we can have a motion that you all agree on that date.
Let's have a motion, please.
Yes, I think so.
okay, I'll make a motion that we have a special meeting on Tuesday, December 9th to address issues brought up at this meeting that require additional information.
8:30? At 8:30?
No, at 8:30.
I'll second that.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Roche?
Yes?
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Chairman Lyons?
Yes. Okay, so the next item is, Rule 7, items by board members. Any items from board members? No comments from public. I move to adjourn the meeting.
Well,
Whoops.
what
Did I
about
skip over
colors?
something?
This is language from Mr. Randolph, these colors.
Oh, yes, sorry,
No.
sorry.
That would be 6C3B. Or do we want to table that reading? The one Mr. Randolph is here.
be here on the ninth even.
I've read this. Has everybody had a chance to read it? I understand the objective to reading it. Who drafted this language?
Mr. Randolph.
Okay, I'm fine with the language. I don't know whether any comment or.
I think it's very clear.
Yeah, it's very clear, okay.
Actually, I have a problem with it, don't I?
You have a question?
Yes, we did, but
How do we solve it?
if they adopt the waiver thing,
Oh, the waiver, pick it up.
the waiver could pick up the question.
Well, let's explain to them what our
Yeah.
concern is.
I know exactly what it is.
What's that? You know
I think
what
I
you-
know what it is. I mean, it's putting something on your building.
Yeah, we're talking about coloring, painting your house, the color of your home, and not objects of the art. Talking about principal color of the structure. We have now approved at least 2 homes that have, and I'll try to describe it, it's a 2-story, single-family home that has batter boards on the top, smooth stucco at the bottom, 2 different colors. And so this language says that it shall be a unifying color across the entire principal building or associated accessory structures. And so, if you voted previously to allow 2 different colors on the structure, this language, and you did it because it looked architecturally pleasing, this language would prohibit that from going on anymore.
In other words, the top was one color and the lower half the other color. But it was the same all the way around. It wasn't one,
Both levels.
you know, both levels. And,
And there was a subtle difference, it was a.
Yes, subtle.
yes. And this proposed language would not allow that. And we talked about it and we said, well, if they adopt the waiver concept as you've recommended that's done, then people who were presenting something that was of 2 different colors could ask for a waiver to let that happen.
Yet, I believe that the waiver system should be the last recourse, and if there's a way to draft language to give you what you want, that it should be in the written form of the code. Marty, any comments? Actually, I think that this 2-tone batten board, I kinda like, and it doesn't fit on,
I would recommend that this be part of the workshop too. I would like input from Marty,
Yeah.
and so let's move that to the workshop, the special meeting, I should call it.
right, we had a motion to have a special meeting to discuss 2 items. Now, do we need a motion to add this third one? You're saying no, Marty?
I don't think so.
Yeah, okay, good.
It's
I
a
don't
special
think so.
workshop.
It's
Sorry,
Special meeting.
sort of
But now you know what the
No,
motion
that's good,
made.
that's good, we addressed it. Before I close, are there any other items, business items to address? If there are not, I move to close the meeting.
thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
This was a very productive meeting.
Yes,
That
it
was
was. Very nicely done. I actually wasn't so optimistic prior to the meeting. I shouldn't have said that, right?
I'll be